Think for a moment. How often do you wake up already tired, not from physical exertion, but from something deeper? Imagine opening your eyes and feeling the world is too loud, too fast, too demanding, that even things once joyful now feel heavy, repetitive, meaningless. If this resonates, this reflection is for you. Stay with me until the end, because the final insight we'll explore is powerful enough to change how you understand life itself. Today we dive into the wisdom of Alan Watts, one of the most profound thinkers of the modern era. His words still echo for those searching for meaning, beyond routine pressure and endless striving. This isn't just about being tired. It's about understanding why you feel this way, what it reveals about your relationship with life, and how this exhaustion may actually be a doorway to awakening. Before we go deeper, if this speaks to you, subscribe, like, share, and write in the comments. What has been draining your energy lately? We'll uncover ideas that may shift how you see fatigue, frustration, and even your desire to escape. What you hear today may quietly transform the way you live. Watts spoke of a peculiar kind of exhaustion, existential fatigue. Not physical, but deep. A tiredness from constantly trying to be someone. Achieve, improve, fix, prove. Society teaches us life is a race, a ladder, a project to complete. From childhood, we're conditioned. Your value depends on productivity, success, progress. Over time, this creates inner tension that never rests. How often do you feel behind? That you should be doing more, becoming more, achieving more. Even rest becomes another task, an obligation. Watts said, when life becomes a series of goals, the present loses its meaning. You're never here, only on your way somewhere else. Eventually, the mind collapses under the weight of endless becoming. That's why being tired of everything feels so confusing. You may have done what you were told, followed rules, chased stability, sought approval, and still empty. According to Watts, this emptiness isn't failure. It's a signal, life whispering. You've been playing a game without realizing it was a game. He compared life to music or dance. Music isn't about reaching the final note as fast as possible. Dance isn't about arriving at a destination. The point is the movement, the experience of each moment. But modern culture treats life as if meaning lies only in the future. When you live this way long enough, exhaustion is inevitable. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly present, without rushing, without calculating the next step? When was the last time you did something simply because it felt alive? Not because it was useful or productive. These questions are uncomfortable because they expose how disconnected we've become from life's natural rhythm. Watts emphasized, the self we try to protect and improve is largely an illusion. The idea of a separate, isolated individual who must control life is a mental construct. When you believe it completely, everything becomes a struggle. You feel responsible for holding the world together, making the right choices, avoiding mistakes at all costs. This creates constant background anxiety, slowly draining your energy. So being tired of everything isn't weakness. It may be a sign you're beginning to see through the illusion. The fatigue arises when the mind can no longer pretend that endless striving leads to fulfillment. At this stage, many feel lost, confused, numb. They want to escape, disappear, start over. But Watts would say this moment is sacred. When you reach exhaustion, you're closer to truth than ever before. Only when the ego tires does it loosen its grip. Only when the mind admits it cannot control life does space open for something deeper to emerge. This isn't giving up on life. It's giving up the false idea of life you've been carrying. Throughout history, thinkers have observed this pattern. Jung spoke of confronting the shadow and inner emptiness. Frankl said meaning cannot be forced, it must be discovered. Eastern philosophies, deeply influential on Watts, teach that suffering comes from resisting what is. When you're tired of everything, you may stand at the edge of a profound inner shift. But here's where many make a critical mistake. They assume the solution is changing external circumstances, a new job, relationship, city, identity, while change can help, Watts warned. Without inner understanding, you recreate the same pattern elsewhere. The tiredness returns because it wasn't caused by surface conditions, but by how you relate to life. So pause here, reflect. Are you tired because life is too hard, or because you've been trying too hard to control it? Exhausted because you lack purpose, or because you've been chasing a purpose that wasn't yours? Write your thoughts in the comments. This reflection deepens when shared. In the next part, we'll explore how Alan Watts explains the moment when everything loses meaning, and why this phase isn't a dead end, but a threshold. What comes next may challenge everything you believe about happiness, success, and the role of the self. When everything starts to lose meaning, most people panic. They think something's wrong with them, broken, unmotivated, failing at life. Alan Watts approached this differently. He saw the loss of meaning not as collapse, but as clearing. The moment borrowed values begin to dissolve, it's uncomfortable, because what's falling away was never truly alive within you. Watts explained, much of what we call purpose is inherited. We absorb expectations from family, culture, education, without questioning. We're told what success looks like, what happiness should feel like, who we must become. For a while, playing these roles gives direction. But eventually, the soul grows tired of pretending. The old motivations stop working. Rewards feel hollow. Praise feels empty. And the question arises, quietly, relentlessly, why am I doing any of this? Terrifying because it removes the familiar ground beneath your feet. But Watts said that ground was always imaginary. He often spoke of the trap of believing life must have a predefined meaning imposed from outside. When that belief collapses, many feel inner emptiness. But in Eastern philosophy, emptiness isn't void. It's space, openness, potential. Think of silence in music. Silence isn't absence. It gives sound its shape, its beauty. Similarly, periods of meaninglessness aren't failures. They're pauses, allowing deeper understanding to emerge. When you're tired of everything, you're no longer distracted by superficial goals. You're finally listening. Watts emphasized, the universe isn't a machine with a goal. It's a process, a happening, a continuous unfolding. Trees don't grow to become something else. Rivers don't flow to reach a destination. They express their nature moment by moment. Humans, however, are taught to treat life as a problem to solve, not a mystery to experience. This misunderstanding creates profound fatigue. Ask yourself, what if your exhaustion isn't asking you to push harder, but to see differently? What if the desire to escape everything is actually a desire to escape the false self you've been maintaining? This idea can feel unsettling, because rest isn't found by stopping activity, but by stopping identification with the role you think you must play. Watts spoke extensively about the illusion of control. Modern society praises control as the highest virtue. Control your future, control your emotions, control your image, control your destiny. But the more you try to control life, the more resistance you create. It's like swimming upstream and wondering why you're so tired. There's a paradox Watts loved. The moment you stop forcing life into a shape, life begins to move through you more freely. Not passivity, not indifference, but alignment. Acting without constant anxiety over outcome. When action flows from presence, not fear, energy returns naturally. Psychologists observe similar dynamics. Maslow noted self-actualization isn't achieved by striving, but by letting go of false needs. Csikszentmihalyi described flow as a state where effort dissolves into immersion. These echo Watts' insight. Fulfillment arises when the ego steps aside and experience unfolds. Being tired of everything can be seen as a transitional phase. The old ways no longer satisfy. The new understanding hasn't stabilized yet. This in-between space can feel lonely. You may feel disconnected from others still, energized by goals and ambitions that no longer resonate. Watts reassured, this loneliness isn't permanent. It's the solitude of transformation. He warned, though, the mind will rush through this phase. seek quick answers, new identities, spiritual labels to replace the old. But true insight cannot be rushed. Just as eyes need darkness to adjust to light, the soul needs stillness to rediscover its rhythm. So instead of asking, "How do I stop being tired?" try asking, "What am I being invited to release? What expectations am I ready to outgrow? What would it feel like to trust life a little more and control it a little less?" These questions aren't meant to be answered immediately. They're meant to be lived. In the next part, we'll explore how Alan Watts describes the rediscovery of joy after exhaustion and why true freedom begins when you stop searching for it. This next insight builds directly on what we've uncovered and prepares the ground for the most powerful realization of all. After exhaustion comes a strange silence. Not yet peace, but surrender. Alan Watts described this moment as when the mind finally admits its usual strategies no longer work. You can't think your way out, can't motivate yourself, can't force enthusiasm back. And paradoxically, this is exactly where something new begins. Watts said, real change happens when effort fails. As long as you believe one more push, one more achievement, one more insight will fix everything, you're trapped in the same cycle. But when the mind runs out of tricks, it relaxes, not because it has found an answer, but because it has stopped fighting the question. This relaxation is subtle, but transformative. At this stage, many fear they're becoming indifferent or detached. In reality, what's dissolving isn't care itself, but compulsive concern. There's a profound difference. Compulsive concern is rooted in fear, the need to secure identity, control outcomes. Genuine care arises naturally when you're present, no longer obsessed with protecting an imaginary self. Watts emphasized, joy isn't something you chase. It appears when resistance ends. That's why people often rediscover simple pleasures after deep fatigue. A walk feels lighter, music deeper, conversations more real, not because life changed, but because you're no longer demanding that life justify itself. This is where Watts' teachings intersect powerfully with Eastern philosophy. In Taoism, there's the idea of Wu Wei, effortless action, moving in harmony with life, not against it. When you stop forcing meaning, meaning emerges organically. When you stop demanding happiness, moments of quiet contentment appear on their own terms. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you allowed yourself to simply be, without labeling the moment as productive or wasted? When was the last time you experienced something without immediately asking, what does this mean? Where is it leading? These moments are small, but essential. Life isn't withholding fulfillment from you. You've been overlooking it while searching elsewhere. Watts warned, the ego dislikes this realization. The ego wants importance, purpose that can be measured, compared, displayed. But life itself isn't interested in being impressive. It's interested in being lived. When you're tired of everything, you're often tired of performing, maintaining an image, pretending to have it all together. Psychologist Erich Fromm spoke of the difference between having and being. Modern society teaches us to find identity in what we have and achieve. Watts echoed this. Exhaustion is the natural result of confusing being with having. When you return to being, energy flows back because you're no longer divided against yourself. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or ambition entirely. It means allowing action to arise from clarity, not desperation. Action from desperation drains you. Action from clarity sustains you. Watts believed, life, when trusted, organizes itself more intelligently than the anxious mind ever could. There's also a deep compassion that emerges at this stage. When you recognize your own exhaustion, you begin to see it in others. You realize much of the tension, anger, conflict in the world comes from people who are tired of everything but don't know why. This insight softens judgment, deepens understanding. So if you feel disconnected, unmotivated, strangely empty, do not rush to fix it. Sit with it, listen to it. Watts reminded us, you cannot calm the ocean by shouting at the waves. You calm the ocean by understanding you are not separate from it. In the final part, we arrive at the most powerful realization of all. The insight Watts believed could dissolve fear, exhaustion, and the sense of being lost at the root. This final understanding brings everything together. It reveals why being tired of everything may be one of the most important moments of your life. At the deepest layer of Watts' philosophy lies a realization, not meant to comfort the ego, but to dissolve it. It doesn't arrive as excitement or sudden happiness. It arrives as clarity, a calm, unsettling clarity that changes how everything is perceived. Watts insisted, the greatest human exhaustion doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from believing you are separate from life itself. When you say you're tired of everything, what you're really tired of is maintaining the illusion that you're a fragment struggling in a hostile world. From childhood, you were taught to see yourself as isolated, trapped inside a body, looking out at a universe to be mastered, negotiated, or survived. This misunderstanding becomes the silent background of your entire existence. It shapes your fears, ambitions, and constant pressure. Alan Watts said this sense of separation is the root of psychological suffering. The mind creates a false center, a fictional self that must always be defended, improved, justified. Every success briefly feeds it. Every failure threatens it. Over time, this endless self-management becomes unbearable. No amount of rest can cure it, because the exhaustion isn't physical, it's existential. Watts often used the image of waves and the ocean. A wave rises, falls, collides with others, but it's never separate from the ocean. In the same way, you are not an independent entity moving through the universe. You are an expression of the universe itself, happening where you are. When this is understood intellectually, it sounds poetic. When felt directly, it's liberating. This is when many become afraid. Because if there's no separate self-controlling life, then who are you? Who decides? Who is responsible? Watts addressed this fear directly. He explained, life has always been happening without your permission. Your heart beats without instruction. Your breath flows without effort. Your thoughts arise before you choose them. Control was never truly yours. The exhaustion came from pretending it was. Here lies the paradox. The moment you stop trying to control life, life becomes more intelligent through you. Not chaotic, not reckless, intelligent. Actions arise naturally from the situation, not from fear. Decisions become simpler, no longer burdened by the need to protect an identity. This realization doesn't eliminate pain, loss, or difficulty, but it transforms your relationship with them. Suffering no longer feels like personal failure or cosmic punishment. It becomes part of existence's movement. Carl Jung spoke of individuation as integrating what was rejected. Watts went further. Wholeness is remembered, not achieved. When this understanding settles, even slightly, a quiet compassion emerges. You stop seeing others as obstacles or competitors. You recognize the same exhaustion behind their anger, ambition, need to be right. You see, most conflict arises from people who feel separate and afraid, desperately, trying to secure their place in a world they believe is against them. That's why Watts emphasized playfulness, not irresponsibility, but play. Life, he said, is not a serious problem to be solved. It's a dance to be participated in. When you forget this, everything feels heavy. When you remember it, even difficult moments carry a strange lightness. You still act, you still care, but you're no longer crushed by the belief that everything depends on you. Ask yourself now, without rushing to answer, what if your exhaustion isn't a signal to escape life, but an invitation to stop misunderstanding it? What if the part of you that's tired is the part that's been pretending to be in control? What if relief doesn't come from fixing yourself, but from realizing you were never broken? Watts believed awakening isn't about becoming extraordinary. It's about realizing the ordinariness of being alive, without resistance. Drinking water, feeling the air, hearing sound, existing, without constantly narrating your existence. When this happens, even briefly, the mind rests, because it's no longer fighting reality. Being tired of everything isn't the end of your path. It's the collapse of a false path. It's the moment the ego exhausts itself and makes room for something honest, grounded, real. And when that realization deepens, you may discover the peace you were searching for was never missing. It was obscured by effort, by fear, by the belief that life was somewhere else, waiting to be earned. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world. You were meant to be part of it. Thanks for watching.